Hello there, welcome to the Football Bloc. My name is Brandon. Today we're going to look at match day 1 of the 2023 Asian Cup. I'm going to look at every game, give my reaction and analysis. So if that sounds interesting, let's hop right into it.
One step beyond.
So match day 1 of the 2023 Asian Cup has concluded. Every single one of these teams at this tournament has played at least one game. We've seen a lot of goals, some great goals, some upsets, I would say, and some of the big teams have shown up. So let's look back at each one of these matches to see what happened, how each team played, and what I think of the tournament going forward, and what I think of these teams and their performances here. Now, the opening match of the tournament, Qatar versus Lebanon, I did a full video of that, much more detailed video on that. If you are interested, go back and watch that video. That was the opening game of the tournament. In short, I think Qatar overall had a very good performance. Lebanon, it wasn't a terrible performance. I think they played bravely, they played valiantly, but there's just a massive gap in talent, particularly up top. Besides their star striker, Matuk, they don't really have much going for them. But with that out of the way, let's go on to the next game in that group, and we have China versus Tajikistan. This match ended as a 0-0 result, and I think that result, even though neither team has won, that heavily benefits Tajikistan. Now, this is Tajikistan's first ever appearance at an Asian Cup. Big achievement for them versus China has been here multiple times in a row. Now, China hasn't necessarily, ever had a defining performance at an Asian Cup in recent times, at least. They've always got out of the group and they've always got to the knockout stage, but at that point, they always get beaten convincingly, usually by a much bigger team. This time around, I think China is on the decline, if I'm being perfectly honest. We've already seen the decline of the Chinese government's project where they wanted to make China this world power in soccer. They've kind of lost faith in that. They've pulled a lot of money out. Also, of course, there's a whole real estate crisis in China, and a lot of the big Chinese teams in the league, the Chinese clubs, were funded by those same companies. So that's a whole other discussion for itself. But I think you can see the effect of that in this match in here in particular. And most likely, unless China get their act together, we'll probably see a repeat of that performance throughout their next matches here, because I think China overall got outplayed by Tajikistan. Tajikistan, I'll be honest, going into this tournament, I couldn't name a single player on Tajikistan, but they were the better team on the field. They just had more drive, more ambition to them. Now, China has more experience and more talent, so I think as the match started to go into the latter stages of the game, as China started to impose themselves, they actually scored a goal off a corner, but it was ruled off for, I think, offside. I'm still very confused of why that goal was chalked off. I think, according to the VAR, there was a player that was offside, or there was some type of foul. Either way, I think it would have been really harsh for China to win this game with a goal like that at the end, considering how well Tajikistan played up until that point. They had a few close chances towards the end, but Tajikistan was able to hold on for that 0-0 result, meaning that Group A still has Qatar at the top of the table there. Now let's move on to Group B. In the first match we have is Australia versus India. Australia, champions of the 2015 Asian Cup. They, ever since moving from Oceania to the Asian Confederation of FIFA, they have been consistently one of the best teams in the tournament and in the region. Now, going into this specific tournament, they decided to leave a lot of their most experienced players at home to try and, get some new blood into the team, reacclimate these players into the team, which could work out great or could kind of turn to be a big failure. Now, I think that Australia is a team that's somewhat in transition with their current coach, Graham Arnold. I think that they did amazing at the 2022 World Cup. I'm a little iffy on their performance here. I think that they were obviously the better team than India, and they came away with a deserved win, but it wasn't a statement win. It didn't fulfill a lot of the expectations that a team like Australia is going to have. India is a team that has made previous Asian Cups in the past. They never really go super far. India, I think, started off the 2019 Asian Cup very well with a 4-1 win over Thailand, but then they completely fell apart in the next 2 games there, which I guess just shows that as popular as the sport is in that country, they just don't have the sufficient programs producing players, high-quality players. And I think, unfortunately, that trend looks to be continuing here. It was a valiant performance from India. They played well, but similar to the Qatar-Lebanon game, probably even more so, there is a massive gap in quality. And even though Australia wasn't the most coherent and, I guess, well put together performance, they came away with a pretty comfortable 2-0 victory. Up next in that group, we had Uzbekistan versus Syria. And Uzbekistan is a team that there was actually a lot of expectations on them going into this tournament as well. But from a different point of view, people were looking at them as one of the potential underdogs. They are a team that has seen their stock massively rise over the past year and a half. They have played a bunch of games against some really good opposition. They've had some good performances and things like that as well. And they have some talented players. Unfortunately, their most talented player, Shurmadov, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, plays for a team in Syria. He used to play for Roma. He's moved around to a few other teams in Syria. He is injured. Unfortunately, he is going to miss this tournament. And I think you can see that absence of that particular player in this performance here, because Uzbekistan tied 0-0 with Syria. And you can argue Uzbekistan was probably the better team. They had more chances, but I don't think they necessarily deserve to win. Syria is a team that has gone up and down, obviously, with the situation going on in their country. They're still going through a civil war. They have been going through that since 2011. But, despite all the craziness and the chaos and the tragedy going on back at home, this team has actually performed very, very well at particular times. For example, when they almost qualified for the 2018 World Cup, which was a crazy performance, even though they didn't eventually get there, it was still amazing to see that. This tournament here, a lot of people don't expect Syria to do much here. I personally think that there was a lot of good signs from this match here. Syria almost won. They had a goal that was disallowed towards the end of the match with only a few minutes left. It was correctly ruled off for being offside. But still, they don't have a whole lot going for it. This team is similar to Lebanon's team, where there isn't a whole lot for them up top in terms of talent. But overall, there's a strong team mentality. They defend pretty well. But I think when you compare them to Lebanon, there is a tad bit more quality there. I think this is a great result for Syria, similar to how Tajikistan got a lot out of a 0-0 draw. And, as long as Syria can, maybe get another draw or maybe even get a win, they can sneak into that third place spot and maybe go into the knockout rounds. The next game we're going to look at is Japan versus Vietnam. Now, Japan, I think on paper, is by far the best team in this tournament. You just look at the names, they pop off the sheet. This is not only one of the best teams, or this is not only the best team in Asia, this is one of the best teams in the entire world, and their past results have shown that. The way they completely tore Germany to shreds in that one friendly is amazing, and then they won a whole bunch of other games as well, playing top opposition. Also, the players are playing in top leagues in Spain, England, Germany, and then they also have a really good mix of youth players and experienced players, and most importantly, a bunch of players in their prime. So this team is set to win the tournament. A lot of people have them as their tournament favorites, and if I'm being honest, going into the tournament, if I did any predictions, I would have said Japan would be my favorite here. Vietnam is a team that I think not a lot of people know about. They're a team that, there isn't any Vietnamese players that play in any prominent European leagues or American leagues or anything like that. Most of them, I think actually this entire squad plays within the Vietnamese league. But as a team mentality, as a team unit, they are, I think, actually a pretty good team, and they have risen up over the past few years. They had a very good performance at the last Asian Cup. Now, some of those players have gotten a little older. I don't know if they'll have as crucial or as impressive as performance here in this tournament, but I think they gave Japan a little bit of a scare. Japan opened the scoring goal from Minamino, but very quickly in the first half, throughout the middle of the first half at least, Vietnam got a header, a really nice header off a corner, and then they capitalized on another mistake from the goalkeeper off a set piece and scored to actually gain the lead over Japan. Now, Japan was able to, I guess, calm the situation down. They got an equalizer, and then they got a wonderful goal to get into the lead just at the end of halftime. A wonderful strike from Nakamura, one of the best goals of the tournament. And then in the second half, Japan really imposed themselves. By far, they were the better team. The talent just really, they were just allowed to do their thing. I think this isn't really a match of Japan playing bad. I don't think that Vietnam necessarily found them out. It was sheer will and sheer dedication. Vietnam was able to momentarily put themselves in the lead, but because Japan is so talented and because they're just such a good team overall, they were able to pretty comfortably regain the lead. They ended up winning 4-2, but it could have been 5 or 6-2 if I'm being honest, towards the end of the game as Vietnam was getting really fatigued. Now, if you look on to the next match in that group, we had UAE versus Hong Kong. Now, this is the first time that Hong Kong has been at the Asian Cup in nearly 60 years. They're not necessarily the biggest team in this tournament. In fact, they are the lowest ranked team going into this tournament. I don't think, in terms of performance, the performances that they can pull off, I don't think they're actually the worst team, but they are in the conversation at least. If you look at their squad, a lot of the players they have to pull nationals from other countries. They have a lot of people that are of half descent from another country, stuff like that. Compare that to UAE, who ironically has a lot of players like that themselves. UAE is, I think, one of the better teams. They are in the upper echelon of Asian national teams. They were semifinalists at last Asian Cup. They were the host of the last Asian Cup. Now, they went out in a blaze. They went out in a very embarrassing fashion, but still, they also have some of the better players in Asia. They have one of the best leagues in Asia as well. So comfortably, they were the favorites, but they won this match 3-1. I don't think that scoreline properly reflects the performance of these two teams. I think for a majority of the first half, Hong Kong outplayed UAE by far. Hong Kong had so many chances. They were forcing the goalkeeper into numerous saves, but unfortunately, because they're such an inexperienced team, because they're just relying on, I guess, the team morale, they made a silly mistake. There was a handball in the box, and as unfortunate as it is to see, it was a clear handball, was a clear penalty. The Emirati player stepped up, scored the penalty, and then went in, and that was also right before halftime as well. So going into the locker room, that I think destroyed Hong Kong's game plan. Even still, it was a very admirable performance. They were able to get a goal back. Then also they made some pretty clear defensive mistakes, which led to the second and third goal from UAE. The third goal there was also another penalty. I gotta say, I don't think Hong Kong's is going to do much in this tournament. I don't think they're going to get absolutely blown out in these games, but I don't think that they're going to go any far. Maybe they can build upon this for the future. UAE, on the other hand, I also don't think they're going to go very far. This was a pretty poor performance here, and if they can't improve on that, they're going to have a rough time once they face one of the top teams in this tournament. Up next, we have Iran versus Palestine. This was a game that I was really excited to see. I was very interested to see what the Palestinian team is going to look like, obviously with all the controversy going on in their country right now, all the geopolitical stuff going on. I was just very interested to see, what the team is going to look like, if anything that's happening outside of football is going to affect the team on the field. And it's hard to say if it really had a negative or positive effect. Obviously, Palestine lost this game. They lost pretty convincingly. Iran was clearly the better team. But is that so much Palestine playing bad, or is that, so much so that Iran is just a better team? Because they clearly are. I think actually out of all of the performances of any of the teams that we've seen so far, This performance from Iran is probably the best. The way they scored the goals, how quick they were going forward, how quick they were in transition, the way that there wasn't really a standout player. It was just every single player doing their job. It was a very, very good performance. Now, Palestine was able to grab a goal back. It was a bit of a scrappy goal off of a set piece, but still, it was really cool to see just the elation from the fans. The guy that scored the goal, the striker, Syed, it looked like he was actually tearing up a little bit after the goal celebrations there. So, it was really cool to see that. As for the next game in that group, we have Malaysia versus Jordan. And Malaysia is another one of those teams similar to Uzbekistan that there was a lot of expectations on them to be a team that really surprises a lot, a team that comes and rises as one of the underdogs. And safe to say, this performance showed no evidence of that being true. They got absolutely torn apart in the first half by Jordan. Now, I think there was some sparks going forward in the second half. I think Malaysia had some good runs of play, things like that. They forced the keeper into some good saves, but they left themselves wide open, and the Jordanian striker Al Tamari was able to score a beautiful goal from outside the box. He chipped the goalkeeper. He also had a wonderful game as well overall. Now, if you look at Malaysia's team, I think some of the players going forward looked pretty good. They had some good passages of play, but there was no defensive solidity at all. And then at times throughout the match, the team looked like they just gave up. Very poor performance overall, everything considered. Jordan, on the other hand, particularly in that first half, I thought played pretty well, but I don't think this is a team that can go in the 90 minutes with one of the top opposition, because there was times as well where they looked like they dropped off a little bit, or they were being a little too cautious, or just fatigue set in. So good performance from Jordan, but it remains to be seen once they go up against serious opposition to see if they can replicate any form of this or any piece of this. Now, we also had South Korea going up against Bahrain. South Korea is another one of those title contenders. Obviously, they have Son Heung-min, the best player in this tournament. You can make an argument he is the best South Korean player of all time. I think Shaboom is going to be a close contender for that. Obviously, he was before my time, so it's hard for me to really say. But regardless, Bahrain is another team that I think is kind of in the mid-tier of Asian teams. They're not a pushover, but obviously they're far away from being title contenders. I think that this was actually a bit of a disappointing performance from South Korea. They ended up winning 3-1, but it was 1-1 for a part of this game, a large portion of this game. It took South Korea a long time to open the score. It looked like they're a little disjointed in attack. They relied a lot on Lee Kang-in, who had a wonderful performance. I don't think Son really had that great of a performance himself, though. Yes, he is the best player in this tournament, but I just don't think it really clicked for him in this match. The manager of South Korea, Jurgen Klinsmann, a man that I know pretty well from my time as being as a USA fan from his tenure as the manager of the US. I'm not fully convinced of his managerial prowess, and I don't really buy into the hype around this Korean team. Yes, they're very talented, but I think this performance shows when they go up against the mid and lower tier teams, they'll grab the win. But if they go up against Japan, if they go up against Iran, or even if they go up against a team like Qatar, I don't know if they're going to have enough as a team overall to go forward. You can't just rely on your talented players when you're going up against serious teams like that. Now, for the other game in that group, we had Indonesia versus Iraq. Indonesia is another one of those teams that look to be on the lower echelon of the teams at this Asian Cup. Not much expectations for them there, despite them having, first of all, such a large population, but also a massive fan base. Iraq is a team that I think not enough people outside of Asian football really give enough credit. Obviously, with all the, over the past really 3 decades, all the political controversy that's happened in their country has meant it's always hard for them to gain any type of stable football infrastructure. And yet they won the 2007 Asian Cup. They've gone far in recent Asian Cups and other tournaments. And I think that they actually had a really good performance here. Wasn't a perfect performance. I think Indonesia played their hearts out. They were able to equalize, but Iraq was able to, I think, really regain the lead, regain control over the match. And going forward, I think they're a team to watch out for. I think, we all expected Malaysia and Uzbekistan to be these underdogs. I think Iraq is going to be a serious underdog or a dark horse, I would say. But of course, that remains to be seen. All right, so we're down to the last two games that we're going to look at. The first one is Thailand versus Kyrgyzstan. This was a match that I thought Thailand completely dominated. This was actually a statement performance from Thailand here. Now, they were in the last Asian Cup, and I think they actually had a pretty admirable performance. They started off pretty poorly, but then they were able to just play well and play, do the right thing at the right moments in the next two games to sneak into the knockout stage. The tournament ended there, but it was something that I could build upon, and it looks like the benefits of the experience from the last tournaments are carrying into this one here, because from minute 1 to minute 90, Thailand was absolutely the better team against Kyrgyzstan. If it wasn't for the post, which they hit like 3 times, this match could have been 4-5-0 right before the hour mark. Now, Thailand, I think they started to get a little tired towards the end of the match, and Kyrgyzstan had a few chances, forced the goalkeeper into 1 or 2 saves, but they were not able to score, and it ended 2-0 to Thailand. Kyrgyzstan had a very poor performance here, if I'm being perfectly honest. And they're a team that I wasn't really expecting a whole lot out of. They themselves had a pretty admirable performance at the last Asian Cup. They were in sort of a tough group, but they, had respectable performances. Here, it looks like they've declined a little bit, if this game is any evidence to go upon. Like I said, towards the end of the match, they had a few chances as Thailand looked a little fatigued, but from the first, I want to say 75 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, they look completely lost, very disjointed overall, especially going forward. Very, very poor, very outmatched by Thailand. As for the next match, we have Saudi Arabia versus Oman. And this match is one of the best matches that we'll probably see this tournament. This was an amazing match. Back and forth stuff, crazy things happening, beautiful goals, a little bit of a feisty affair, some fights, some harsh words between the players of either teams. The match started off actually with Oman on the front foot, which is crazy to think about because, this is a Saudi team that just defeated Argentina at the World Cup. They're the only team that were able to beat the eventual world champions. And then eventually, yes, they did lose their manager. They lost Bernard, but Roberto Mancini came in, the guy who's won so many titles in Italy with Inter. He just won the Euros with the Italian national team not too long ago. So, he came into this team, this setup here with a lot of talented players. Also, there's a lot of eyes in the football world on Saudi Arabia, the amount of money that they put into their league with big stars like Ronaldo and Neymar, Mane, all going to the Saudi Pro League. So there's a lot of expectations on them. They are seen as one of the title contenders, and yet Oman came and straight up just punched them right in the nose. Oman is one of the teams that I would say is like mid-tier in the Asian Cup. They've had some good performances here and there. I thought they were pretty good at the Arab Cup in 2021. And of course, these two teams, they play each other a lot. They're both from the Gulf area. They are also neighbors, so they've played each other a lot. So I feel like they know each other a lot there. There's a familiarity. And the Oman players, I thought they had the drive. They had more of the drive going forward in the first half. They got a penalty. I think it was a deserved penalty. And they scored it with ease. And I think that kind of awoken a spark in the Saudis. It was very back and forth from that point on. There was tons of chances. The goalkeeper for Oman was forced into several serious saves. That being said, the Saudis left themselves open on the counter, and Oman had a few chances as well. Into the second half, though, this match was kind of getting into a bit of a grind, in a good way, in the sense that it looked like the Saudis just were not able to score. It looked like it was just not going to be their day. They had chance after chance after chance. But Oman, despite there being a massive gap, not necessarily a massive gap, but a defined gap in talent. They were holding on. There was a lot of last-ditch defending, and as I said before, a lot of good saves from the goalkeeper. But they kept knocking on the door, and eventually they would break it down after a wonderful goal from Grahib. A beautiful dribble through the middle, went through 3 players, and then curled it into the bottom corner with a very finessed finish there. And then from that moment on, I think that Oman, they looked really tired. They looked like they kind of lost their game plan a little bit, but still, it looked as if the match was going to finish 1-1, even if the Saudis had more of the momentum at this point of the match. But with virtually no time left on the clock, there was a corner. The ball gets played short, and it's headed from one player into the box, and the Saudi defender comes up and heads it into the net. Clear finish, pinpoint range, goalkeeper can't do anything about it. But then the referee goes to VAR and then calls it for being offside. They look at it for a little bit and then he says it's offside, but if you look at the replay, it's not offside. He's clearly onside. He disallows the goal. Maybe like a few seconds go by. He goes back and then rewards the goal. Very strange, commotion right there. First the Saudi players are angry, and then, they're happy that they scored, then angry that it's disallowed. Then they're happy that they do score. Fans are going nuts. Everyone in the stadium. It was a packed stadium, by the way. Fans are going crazy. The Saudi players do this crazy celebration with a green balloon. Wonderful scenes to say. Like I said, probably, besides that Japan-Vietnam game, the best game that we've seen so far. Not the best performance from Saudi Arabia. It was, in the end of the day, they got done what they needed to get done, and they played really good at times, but they did leave themselves open defensively. I think that if they want to win this tournament, they need to shore up those leaky holes at the back. Very valiant performance from Oman. I think that they have a really good chance of getting into the knockout stage, especially if you look at Kyrgyzstan. Realistically, they're probably going to finish 4th. So it's just between Thailand and Oman for 2nd place. That'll be a good game to watch. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think of the 2023 Asian Cup so far. What do you think is the best goal that we've seen between the Japan versus Vietnam game and the Saudi Arabia versus Oman game? What do you think was the best game that we've seen so far? Or if there's another one, let me know. Who do you think has performed the best so far? In my opinion, it's either Iran or Japan. Let me know what you think. Type all your comments in the section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow the Football Bloc on social media. But anyway, guys, my name is Brandon, and I'll see you guys later.
One step beyond.